Another important part of writing, I think, is the rubric. I think rubrics help children take control and ownership of their own writing, kind of puts them in charge of their own writing and helps them to know what to be looking for, making sure they include. How did y'all use rubrics with your groups?
I showed my students the rubric from the very beginning.
And this is elementary.
And what I liked the most about the rubric was not only could I use it to get a grade percentage, but it was easy for my students to understand what was expected, because I feel like a lot of rubrics and a lot of programs, including when you look at like the state test VCR rubrics, the language is really hard for the kids to understand, and it takes a lot of teacher time to kind of translate what's expected of the students. But your rubric is just flat out used at least 3 creative verbs. My students know what creative means, they know what verbs are, they know what to do. So there's no mystery. It was easy for them. Yeah.
Well, the nice thing for my students, I think, was knowing exactly what's expected of them. They were able to look down through it. They knew exactly what they needed to do in order to get that A on that paper. And then when we did revisions, when other students came to look at their paper, they knew exactly what they had to look for in the paper. Did they have a catchy opening sentence? Did they have some descriptive adjectives, verbs? And then they were able to check them off, and if they couldn't find them, it wasn't clear, then they didn't check it. So, it was very clear.
And with the camp, you had rubrics and portfolios, right?
Yep, I agree exactly with what Sarah and Rhonda said. The rubric, inside the portfolio, the rubric in more student-friendly terms is listed, and it says write more polished, ask yourself did I, so they can go down and check off all the things. Now sometimes the students, unless you really, I noticed that after the first paper they wrote, and I showed them how I'm going to use the rubric, how they should use the rubric, and I give them, say, a grade on it. After they see the grade, their first grade, they're more apt next time to actually follow that rubric. Whereas before they're just like, yep, did that. Once they see, oh yeah, he actually is looking for 3 powerful verbs, so they're more apt to use, each of these components. Right. Exactly. So they know why they're grading. And that's a huge thing about the rubric. Like Rhonda said, they need expectations. They need to know, what their goals are. Unless it's a completely creative, free writing assignment, where there's not much structure, then I feel like the rubric is necessary, and the Write More rubric is just so specific for the students. I honestly wish, growing up, because I was just struggling writing myself, I wish I had those kind of rubrics. I just don't remember the rubrics. They had rubrics maybe, but I think they were a little more vague, more general.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like the Write More is the first time I really saw it being broken down like this. So that's the one thing I do like about the Write More rubric.
I feel like the teachers would hide the rubrics from us almost instead of sharing it with us.
No, I totally agree, and they didn't mean to, but it's nice to know what you're going to be graded on. I think a rubric lets the student know this is what good writing contains. Oh, good, I can make sure mine contains that.
Yeah, I almost wish our college professors used that.
Right. Everybody, I agree.
Yeah. It's key today, this talk of transparency. Well, in a classroom too. Transparency. This is what I expect of you. This is how it's going to be graded. Here's the rubric. Here's your prompt.
Right.
Yeah.
And
write your essay.
You know what you need.
Make it fit.
An idea popped into my head when you said that you were a struggling writer growing up, and that would have helped you. I was not a struggling writer growing up. I thought writing was the best thing since sliced bread. It was easy for me. But I would have loved this, because what 3 creative verbs are to a struggling writer is different than what 3 creative verbs are for a person who, that writing comes a little bit more easily. So it's already differentiated, even without.
And that's why we say, I think all the Write More stuff is for reluctant and enthusiastic writers, we say. And some people go, how can it possibly be for both? But it is, because it's what you're bringing to the table, and in your mind you're already at this level, and so when you read that you're taking it further. Struggling writers are starting at a different level.
Well, see, one of my classes is an honors class, and I held them to a higher standard. The same thing. Descriptive words for them would be different than my remedial class.
Right.
So, but it's still, you have the same requirements. That's it, right?